Welcome back to KTN News Center. Now, the succession of retired Chief Justice David Maraga is this week expected to take an even more interesting turn when the Judicial Service Commission shortlists candidates for the position, and that of a Supreme Court judge. So what are the likely names to expect, and what backroom politics is at play in the ongoing reconstitution of the Supreme Court? Our political affairs reporter Murimi Mwangi explains on this week's House of Cards.
When Justice Patrick Jeremy Otieno, sitting in Meru late last month, issued orders barring Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu from office pending conclusion of a petition questioning her conduct, it became all too clear that the backroom power play in the recruitment of retired judiciary boss David Maraga's successor had begun in earnest, and the legal fraternity was up in arms.
The biggest concern I have is with what I call political interference in the judiciary, or with the judiciary. And political interference may come from politicians, other actors, sometimes even judges. Fellow judges may interfere in the work of their fellow judges.
Justice Otieno has since vacated that order following an application by Mwilu, as the embattled Deputy Chief Justice legal team heads back to Meru this week to face off with one Isaiah Mongela, a lawyer who claims to have sufficient evidence to institute criminal proceedings against her. That case will coincide with the Tuesday deadline for applications to fill the Chief Justice post and that of Supreme Court judge, vacated by Justice Jack Ojwang, who retired last year. But who is likely to appear on the shortlist? Perhaps closest to succeeding Maraga is embattled Mwilu, who has, however, been on the trail of state agencies since the 2017 Supreme Court nullification of President Uhuru Kenyatta's re-election, tribulations that have included threats on her life and the shooting of her bodyguard just days to the 2017 repeat presidential poll. This bad blood, with the state analysts argue, may also dim the chances of yet another frontliner to the Maraga succession, Supreme Court Judge Smokin Wanjala, who in 2016 came second after the race to replace Willy Mutunga, also touted as a likely option to head the judiciary, is long-serving judge and current Attorney General Kihara Kariuki. However, as the chief legal advisor to the Kenyatta administration, the task to deliver a favorable Chief Justice to the state perhaps weighs heaviest on Kihara's shoulder than any of the other Judicial Service Commission members that will undertake the task. Also expected to feature on the list is former Judicial Registrar and current President of the Appellate Court William Ouko, a post Ouko was incidentally elected to against the wishes of the state on the 9th of March 2018, when the President shook hands with former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. Insiders at the Court of Appeal, however, say the 59-year-old judge is more keen on the post of Supreme Court judge than that of CJ. Several female judges are also reportedly eyeing a stab at the Apex Court, either as judge or Chief Justice. Among these is Supreme Court Judge Njoki Ndongo and Appellate Court Judges Martha Koome and Wanjiro Karanja. Their chances, however, analysts argue, majorly depend on Mwilu's fortunes due to the gender question. The Apex Court certainly on the political spotlight, being the only constitutional bench that can resolve presidential disputes arising from the 2022 polls.
The executive is going to get very interested because more than ever before, it is obvious that the Chief Justice, what he stands for, influences many things the executive will want to do. For instance, independence and the compromise and the political stature of the person.
Why would you want to put the cart before the horse? We have no idea who will be nominated. And before that person also comes to Parliament, he has also go to the President. So when that time comes, then of course we will cross the bridge when we come to it.
I have previously mentioned, off the cuff, you have very solid people, like the President of the Court of Appeal, Judge Ouko, like Professor Makau Mutua. You have other practitioners like Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi. I've mentioned all these names previously. And I think even the Attorney General, those are viable candidates.
Yet history has shown serious political interest in recruitment of Chief Justice, including the age factor that almost guarantees that no judicial boss serves beyond one election cycle.
It should be the jurisprudential quotient of the candidate. Affiliation with the system, either the judiciary itself, the legislature, or the executive, to me should not be a consideration.
All politics, they say, is local, but the administrative experience and jurisprudential competence of the applicants notwithstanding, external political players are certainly all eyes as the Maraga Succession continues. Murumi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
So let me bring in lawyer Kakai Kissinger, who is going to break it down for us in terms of the appointment of the next Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya after the retirement of David Maraga on the 12th of last month, that is January. And thank you so much for joining us here on KTN News Center, Wakili. So let me just begin by first picking your mind on the questions as to whether the country needs an insider or a conservative Chief Justice.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for asking that question. I think my view is that from where I sit and having worked in that institution and having seen the last almost three chief justices, the past three chief justices coming in and coming out, my honest considered opinion is that you need a chief justice from within the institution. As opposed to getting a chief justice from outside. Because, you know, a chief justice is purely a policy and administrative function that he does. And you therefore want somebody who has either worked in that institution, currently working in that institution, or that person who is exposed to that institution, for example, a lawyer. But more often than not, you notice that if you get a chief justice who is within the institution from the ranks of the current sitting judges, then you are better off running that institution because it's not an easy job. So my honest opinion is they should look for somebody within that institution.
But there are other legal minds who argue that, Wakili, they argue that getting a conservative Chief Justice would be the best thing because he will be responsive, he or she would be responsive to the dominant political class.
No, I think not entirely truth. It could have some truth in it. But I think if you had to ask me who should be the next Chief Justice, I'll tell you that the next Chief Justice should be appointed depending on his jurisprudence. What has he or what does he stand up to in terms of the legal jurisprudence? But above all, a Chief Justice must be that one who must be able to merge or marry or do a very good interplay between law and politics. And that's what we are lacking in this country. So you need to have a Chief Justice who understands how the politics operates and how we will navigate around the politics, and also who has jurisprudential value or what it is that he will do to uphold the Constitution and the independence of that institution.
In fact, I was about to ask you that, Wakili, because it looks like, can I say then that the recruitment of the next Chief Justice would borrow heavily from the former Chief Justice Mutunga and also David Maraga, who had the experience of balancing both the law and politics of this country?
Yes and no. I don't think that Mutunga and Maraga were... Mutunga and Maraga, I think, stood up in terms of independence of the judiciary. And therefore, they took the judiciary as an arm of government that is independent and an arm of government that should not be interfered with by external forces, which was a good thing for them to push for. But my argument will be that in the Mutunga and Maraga tenures, you realize that the relationship between the judiciary and the executive and the legislature was completely soiled. It was a bad relationship. So the two of them struggled to navigate around bringing the relationship between the judiciary and other arms of government. But remember one thing which is very critical for us to understand is the judiciary does not stand in isolation. Although the judiciary is independent, at the same time the judiciary must have that what you call interdependence. How does the judiciary work with the executive? How does the judiciary work with the legislature? So we need now a Chief Justice who will maintain the independence of the judiciary post-Maraga, post-Mutunga and post-Maraga, but at the same time try to move or endear and ensure that the interdependence between the judiciary and the executive, judiciary and the legislature is actually enhanced. That's what I'm saying. You need a Chief Justice more precisely from within the institution, but who can play very well the politics and the law at the same time.
But then, actually, let's face the reality. We will see a lot of political maneuvers, political interference with the recruitment of the next Chief Justice, because there's a lot of political interest on the person who will be the next, president of the highest court in the land.
Yes. And remember, purely the issue of recruitment of the Chief Justice is a constitutional requirement, which is bestowed against the Judicial Service Commission. Remember that the Judicial Service Commission has 11 commissioners who actually come from all corners. So the only probably argument will be that how many of those does the executive control? And the executive has only control probably of the 2 representatives of the JSC and probably the Attorney General. So you have only 3 people that one can say will be controlled by the executive when it comes to appointment. The rest, actually, the rest of the commissioners are going to be commissioners coming from the judiciary itself and commissioners coming from the law society itself. So the interplay, therefore, will entirely depend with the Judicial Service Commission. But what we should be talking about more is to ensure that the Judicial Service Commission gives Kenyans a Chief Justice that we all will be proud of, a Chief Justice that we will all say has taken the gains from Mutunga, has taken the gains from Maraga, and is actually leading that institution as per the Constitution. Remember, even with the BBI moments, judiciary has been left as much as possible intact in terms of interdependence and in terms of independence. So we need to have a Chief Justice who will play that role past the 2010 Constitution and who will play that role in terms of navigating around the politics and the jurisprudence of this country.
All right. So when you look at, the Deputy Chief Justice, who's also the acting Chief Justice, Philomena Mwilu, I mean, she would have scored high on a logical successor, of David Maraga. But then now he's facing several court challenges. Are we likely to see this blocking her from being shortlisted as a candidate?
It's unfortunate that Mwilu is facing these challenges. I don't know how she will come around it, but she stands a very good chance to succeed Maraga, being the first female person who is likely to become the Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya. It's unfortunate she's going through these challenges. I think she has had a very rough time since she took over that office. I do not know how they will play out in terms of the politics. I do not know how they will play out in terms of the legal jurisprudence. But in the event that, therefore, she's unable to succeed Maraga, which I think she should have been able to succeed Maraga, save for these challenges she's going through, there are other very competent judges, and I think Murimi Mwangi did a very good job in terms of listing those who have applied to become Chief Justice. It's just unfortunate that probably every Kenyan will have wished to see Mwilu becoming the Chief Justice because she'll be the first female Chief Justice, but there are dynamics in that succession politics because she's an insider. She has worked under Maraga. She knows how to play the role of a Chief Justice. Now she's acting as a Chief Justice. She's at the front line in terms of succeeding him. The challenges are there. But then there are also others that have been listed. There are Smokin Wanjala. You look at the Attorney General, Kihara Kariuki. You look at Court of Appeal, President Court of Appeal, Justice William Ouko. Those are very competent people. I've also had the names of Mother Koome being listed there. So we just hope one of them will be able to succeed in the event that Mwilu falls by the wayside.
In fact, it's good you've mentioned the names of some of the possible judges who might take over from Maraga if they pass that interview and probably if they apply and they're shortlisted. But then now let's look at the age, of a Chief Justice. And I know this has caused a lot of questions or a lot of political debates, whether it would trigger succession acrimony at the apex court.
The age, as I said before, I've worked in that institution, and that position of Chief Justice is a very demanding position. And anybody who wants to become a Chief Justice will only want to work there for one term and then go home. Meaning, therefore, that you want to be there at an advanced age, because the age of a Chief Justice should retire at 70. So you want to be there at an advanced age, 70 minus probably 5, and you go home. But we have judges like, for example, I can pick Smokin Wanjala, who are very young. Judges like William Ouko. William Ouko stands also a very good chance. Remember that this is a person who has been a registrar before, And so he understands the dynamics of running that institution, having been a registrar. I was a registrar in that institution. So I know the understanding and underpinning of how you can be a Chief Justice successfully when you have been a registrar. So he has good chances. But he's very young. But at the same time, the same law says he's only about 59. But at the same time, the law says that you can serve one term. Once you serve one term, nothing stops you from resigning. Then when you resign as a Chief Justice, because ideally you should serve one term, it's very tedious. Once you resign as a Chief Justice, you go back to the Supreme Court as a judge. So there's nothing wrong with you serving for one term, even if you are young, then you retire and you go back to the Chief Justice, to the Supreme Court as a judge, because the Chief Justice is a Chief Justice, at the same time is a court judge in the Supreme Court. So it's fine that way. But as ideal as I said, if you serve one term, the better. It's too demanding.
All right. So as we wind up this conversation, Wakili, so talk to us about this recruitment process. What should Kenyans expect apart from that open door policy in terms of live coverage when it comes to the interviews for the next Chief Justice?
I think what Kenyans should expect, I think the interviews are I think the applications are closing tomorrow. So from tomorrow, the Judicial Service Commission, through the registrar of the JSC, will then publish the names to the newspapers. Once the names are published, then there will be what we call background checks. All of them have to be checked by institutions that have been guaranteed under the Constitution to ensure that someone has got no baggage that they are bringing on board. So EACC will check them, the DCI will check them, the police will check them, the KRA will check them, and all those institutions to ensure that the person who is coming in as a Chief Justice is clean. Once that is done, then of course the interviews will be called and they'll be interviewed publicly. You know, this is a senior position, head of an arm of government, and therefore everybody will want to participate in that. So it will be entirely the responsibility of the Judicial Service Commission to interview these people in public and ensure that they get the best. Of course, questions will come in. We also expect, by the way, to see many other applications, people filing applications or complaints in court or before the JSC, once they know who has been shortlisted as a judge or who has been shortlisted to take over as a Chief Justice. So this will play out all throughout. That's why I'm saying, for the case of Mwilu, depending on the outcome that will take place in Meru and all that, I think she will have a bit of a rough time to navigate around, but that doesn't stop her from going through, because remember, there's that constitutional requirement which says everyone is innocent until proven guilty. So she still has applied. I hope she has applied. She will be shortlisted definitely because she's the acting Chief Justice, and then she will also face the panel, and those questions will be brought in there. So that's basically what we expect, and after that, then a Chief Justice, the name of the nominee will be sent, of course, to President for a formal appointment. And we hope to have a Chief Justice as soon as possible.
All right, you hope to have a Chief Justice as soon as possible. Wait to see whether the next Chief Justice of the Republic of Kenya will be a man or a woman. Allow me to take another short breather. We shall be coming back in just a few minutes for the second hour of KTN News Center.